There's this book called Art and Fear by David Bales, where he talks about an example of a ceramics teacher who on day one enters the classroom and divides the class into two groups, left and right. The group on the left side has been asked to make as many pots as possible, and they will be graded solely on the quantities that they come out with. However, the group on the right has been asked to make one pot, albeit the perfect one. Use as much time, energy and resources, but come up with the best product as possible. Since then, this story has been told and retold many times. Recently, it was told by James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, where he switches the example with a photography lecture. One side of the classroom was told to create as many photographs as possible, and on the right side they were asked to create the one perfect shot. And on the final day, for the left side, he would tally up the number of photos created by each student. 100 photos would mean A grade, 90 photos would mean B grade, and so on. In both cases, the ceramic pots and the photographs, it was surprising to see that the best quality came out of the students who were tasked to create as many quantities as possible throughout the year. During the semester, the quantity group were taking many shots day after day with different compositions, different camera angles, different lighting, basically learning from every single mistake that they did in the past. Meanwhile, the quality group on the right side was only speculating the perfection, which is why their end result was only mediocre. It is pretty clear from all these examples that it comes down to repetitions, consistent repetitions. There is the story of a young up-and-coming comedian who got a chance to see Jerry Seinfeld's comedy show and meet him backstage. He got one question to ask him, and he asked, "What is the secret to success for someone like me?" He told him about one strategy that later came to be known as the Seinfeld strategy. Jerry's answer was, the way to be a better comic was to create better jokes, and the way to create better jokes was to write every day. He told the guy that he keeps a big full-year calendar with a red marker, and every time he finishes his task of writing, he would put a giant X on the day of writing. Now after a few days, there is a chain, and his only job is to make sure to not break this chain. In the beginning, it might be tough, but when you have a full week under your belt, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, imagine how amazing would that feel. Your only job is to not break that chain. Seinfeld never mentioned anything about results. It didn't matter if he was writing good jokes. It didn't matter if all those jokes made it to the shows. Some of them did, some of them definitely did not. The only job he talked about was not breaking the chain. Repetitions matter, and that applies to all sorts of skills out there. I recently joined CrossFit after many years, which means I started lifting after many years. The first 2 days, I ended up over the sink almost throwing up. But those 2 days, that entire week, was the foundation of what came next. It's been over a month now, and I have been finishing all the workouts. This can be applied to any skill out there: learning how to swim, learning how to play the piano, learning a new language, learning how to code. If you don't have a big full-year calendar, maybe print out 30-day calendars and write down the skill on top. As James Clear says it, it's not the quest to one perfect goal that makes you better. It's the skills you develop from doing a volume of that work. Ryan Holiday wrote 10 books in 10 years. He could have chosen to write the one perfect book in that time, but he was learning from his mistakes. He was learning the audience retention. He was gaining feedback from his audience. He was learning one book at a time. In other words, focus on the daily repetitions. Focus on the 100 times you are going to press play on this camera. Focus on the 100 articles that you write. Focus on the daily work that comes before the I made it stage. Quantity is the work that brings out the quality. Allow the first 100 quantities to suck, but no matter what happens, don't break the chain.